What happens when the man who turned a children's pizzeria into a death trap gets dropped into Spider-Man City? Thanos had a goal to wipe half of humanity. Mysterio had a plan for revenge. Afton had an obsession with death, control, and Remnant. And he chose a cursed survival in a spring-locked rabbit suit rather than face the consequences. The MCU has never seen a villain like this. William Afton has arrived in New York City. 4 years after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter Parker's life has completely changed. The world still remembers Spider-Man. They remember the hero who saved New York, fought alongside the Avengers, and protected the city from threats beyond anything ordinary people could imagine. But nobody remembers Peter Parker. The people closest to him have moved on. His friends continue living their lives without knowing the sacrifices he made or the memories they shared with him. To everyone else, Peter Parker is a person who never existed, but Peter keeps moving forward. Now an adult, Peter has fully embraced the responsibility that comes with being Spider-Man. He operates alone, protects the streets of New York, and carries the weight of a sacrifice that nobody else understands. Without his old support system, and without anyone who truly knows him, being Spider-Man is no longer something he balances with a normal life. It has become his entire existence. This is the world Peter Parker enters in Spider-Man Brand New Day, a world where he is older, more experienced, and more isolated than ever before. But while Peter struggles to survive this new reality, something inside of him begins to change. The pressure of years spent fighting alone has triggered a dangerous physical evolution. Peter is fighting a telepath who tries to get inside of his head. Somehow, this triggers a mutation in his body, and this forces Peter to confront a threat that is not coming from the outside of himself, but from within. Peter believes understanding this transformation will be his greatest challenge. He believes the hardest battle ahead will be discovering what is happening to his own body, but he's wrong. Somewhere beyond the boundaries of his universe, a doorway between realities opened for only a moment. Something crossed through before the fracture closed, leaving no warning and no explanation. For the first time in his existence, William Afton finds himself in a world unlike anything he has ever known. A world filled with heroes, advanced technology, and beings far beyond human understanding. And somewhere above him, one of those heroes is Spider-Man. Deep beneath the city, Afton realizes survival requires immediate action. The spring bodysuit continues to deteriorate with every passing day. The synthetic materials holding the costume together begin to weaken. The internal systems struggle to function, and the limited power supply starts running low. If he wants to survive this unfamiliar world, he needs replacement parts, information, and a way to access the technology around him. Afton begins exploring the abandoned subway networks beneath Manhattan, searching for a location where he can operate without being discovered. He eventually claims an old maintenance pump room as his new base. From there, he studies the underground systems, learning the schedules of passing trains, and memorizing the vibrations traveling through the concrete above him. Every movement in the city becomes another piece of information for him to analyze. His first opportunity arrives when two urban explorers, Mark and Sarah, break through a chained entrance leading into one of the forgotten sections of the tunnels. They hope to document abandoned parts of New York for their online audience. They have no idea they've entered the territory of something hiding beneath the city. Afton hears their footsteps echoing through the tunnels. He follows them from the darkness, moving carefully and silently despite his damaged frame. He studies their movements, predicts their path, and waits until they enter a narrow corridor blocked by a collapsed section of the tunnel. With nowhere else to go, they unknowingly walk deeper into his trap. Sarah slowly moves her camera across the walls while Mark shines his flashlight into a nearby passage. The beam stops and it catches two dull, silver eyes staring back from the darkness. Mark freezes. The flashlight points towards the darkness as something heavy moves deeper inside the tunnel. Neither of them can tell what they're looking at, but they know something is there. Afton steps out of the shadows. The flashlight reveals the condition of the spring bodysuit. The yellow-green fabric is torn and worn down, exposing parts of the damaged endoskeleton underneath. Rusted metal shifts with every movement, and the remains of William Afton are still trapped inside the machine. The suit is a reminder that he's both a man and a machine, held together by years of damage and decay. Sarah drops the camera as Mark turns and tries to run. Afton reacts immediately. His metal hand grabs Mark's shoulder before he can escape, pulling him back into the darkness as the flashlight hits the ground and spins across the tunnel floor. Sarah runs through the tunnels, desperately searching for a way out. Behind her, she hears Afton following. He isn't chasing her because he doesn't have to. He knows the tunnels better than she does, and he knows fear will make her mistakes for him. Later, inside of his hidden base, Afton examines the technology they brought with them. He takes apart their equipment piece by piece, studying how it works and figuring out how he can use it to repair and improve his own systems. The process is difficult, forcing him to work around the damage inside the spring bodysuit and the limitations of the technology he came from. With the information from their smartphones, Afton begins learning about the new world. He researches New York, the Department of Damage Control, local law enforcement, and the underground markets where he can find useful resources. He studies maps, public records, and the city's infrastructure, slowly building an understanding of how everything connects. Afton realizes that this world has far more advanced technology than anything he's ever seen. However, he also sees the same thing he's always looked for: weaknesses. If he wants to rebuild himself and expand his influence, he'll need access to better resources. To do that, he'll need people who can operate in the world above while he remains hidden. Afton quickly realizes something. He can't access the technology he needs by himself. He needs someone on the inside, someone who already has access to the systems and resources he wants. Instead of exposing himself, he starts looking for someone vulnerable enough to control. While studying the subway networks, Afton notices maintenance crews working throughout the underground areas of Manhattan. One worker catches his attention: Marcus, a low-level contractor working with the Department of Damage Control. His job involves inspecting and maintaining parts of the city's underground infrastructure. Afton begins watching Marcus closely. At first, he only creates small disturbances. Marcus notices tools being moved from where he left them. He hears strange noises coming from restricted sections of the tunnel. Every time he investigates, he finds nothing, leaving himself unsure if something is actually happening or if he's just imagining it. Afton slowly increases the pressure. He follows Marcus after work, staying hidden while learning his routine, where he lives, and how he moves through the city. He studies every detail of Marcus's life until he knows exactly how to get inside his head. One morning, Marcus wakes up and finds a damaged spring lock component sitting on his pillow. It's rusted, stained, and placed there intentionally. Marcus immediately understands the message. He changes his locks, stops sleeping properly, and becomes terrified of being alone. A few nights later, he wakes up and sees Afton standing at the entrance of his room. The damaged spring bodysuit fills the doorway as Afton silently watches him. "You'll need to go to work tomorrow," Afton says. "They'll bring me what I need from Sector 4. If you tell anyone about me, you'll regret it." Marcus has no choice. Out of fear, he agrees. The next day, Marcus begins stealing small pieces of equipment from the DODC facilities. He takes discarded technology, damaged parts, and anything Afton believes could be useful. He leaves everything at hidden locations throughout the subway tunnels, allowing Afton to collect the materials without ever being seen. Over time, Afton starts using Marcus for more than just supplies. He uses Marcus's fear and guilt to keep him under control. After forcing him into his first crime, Afton knows Marcus is easier to manipulate. He pushes him to bring in other workers, including people who have access to different areas of the DODC system. Slowly, Afton builds an underground network. The people involved never fully understand who they're working for. They only know that someone dangerous is controlling the operation from the shadows, and that disobeying him has its consequences. Afton doesn't need to take over the city himself. He only needs to find the right people, apply the right pressure, and let the system's own weaknesses work in his favor. Above ground, Peter Parker continues trying to understand what is happening to his body. The changes start small, but they've become impossible to ignore. His abilities feel different. His recovery is inconsistent. His body is reacting to something he can't explain. And for the first time in years, Peter doesn't fully understand what's happening to himself. Peter goes outside of his apartment and suddenly loses control of his movement. Everything feels so loud. He tries to web swing anyways, but his vision blurs, his muscles tense, and he nearly misses a web swing between two buildings. He lands on a nearby rooftop and takes a moment to recover. For years, Peter has relied on his instincts. He knows how to read a situation, predict where criminals will strike, and notice details that most people overlook. But this time, the biggest mystery in New York isn't happening around him. It's happening inside of him. Despite that, Peter keeps doing what he's always done. He keeps looking for people who need help. While investigating his own condition, as well as the telepath that caused all this, Peter starts noticing patterns across the city. Missing persons reports that don't seem connected. People disappearing from areas where nobody usually looks. Small incidents that never receive enough attention to become major investigations. He begins to look deeper. A few homeless individuals have vanished from subway stations. Several urban explorers who entered abandoned parts of the city never returned. Some workers connected to underground construction and maintenance suddenly quit their jobs after reporting strange experiences. Others simply stop showing up. To most people, these cases appear random. Different locations, different victims, different circumstances. Peter sees something else. He starts creating his own map of the disappearances, marking locations, timelines, and connections between the victims. He compares the incident with public records, transportation routes, and information about underground facilities throughout Manhattan. The pattern slowly becomes clear. The disappearances are concentrated around areas connected to old subway tunnels and restricted maintenance zones, places where someone could hide for a very long time without being discovered. Peter realizes this isn't a collection of unrelated crimes. Someone is operating underneath the city, staying hidden, and carefully choosing their targets. That changes how Peter approaches the investigation. Instead of arriving as Spider-Man in his usual red and blue suit, he decides to move quietly. He puts on darker clothing over his mask and enters the subway system late at night, focusing on gathering information before making contact. He follows the locations connected to the disappearances, searching through abandoned sections of the tunnels and old maintenance areas. He looks for anything that might explain what happened to the missing people. At first, he finds small signs: a flashlight left behind near a restricted entrance, personal belongings abandoned in places where they shouldn't be, marks on the walls that suggest someone has been moving through these tunnels regularly. The deeper Peter goes, the more certain he becomes that someone has created a hidden operation beneath New York. Eventually, he reaches a maintenance area that appears to have been abandoned for years. The door has been forced open, and the damage doesn't match normal wear and tear. Inside, Peter finds evidence that someone has been using the location as a base. There are tools, damaged equipment, and pieces of technology that don't belong together. Old machinery mixed with newer components. Improvised repairs made by someone who understands engineering but doesn't actually have access to proper resources. Peter studies the area carefully. This isn't just someone hiding underground. This is someone building something very dark. He notices the marks left behind, deep damage to the walls, evidence that something heavy has been moving through the tunnels, signs that whoever is responsible isn't just intelligent, they're dangerous. Peter follows the trail deeper underground, but something changes. His spider sense activates. It feels different, more like the feeling that someone has been watching him for a long time and finally realizes he has entered their territory. Peter stops moving. For the first time in years, Spider-Man isn't hunting a criminal. He's being hunted. Afton's network has been operating for weeks. More people will disappear before Peter finds them. Peter follows the trail through several abandoned sections of the subway system. The marks he found become easier to track as he moves farther underground. Eventually, they lead him to a set of heavy steel doors blocking access to an old transit control room. The area isn't supposed to be in use anymore. A large padlock hangs from one of the doors, but it's been broken apart. Peter examines the damage and realizes it wasn't cut open with a tool. Something used enough force to snap it. Peter carefully pushes the door open and steps inside. The room is almost completely dark. He activates the small light attached to his suit and slowly looks around. At first, the space appears empty, but Peter quickly notices signs that someone has been working there. A makeshift workbench sits against one wall. It's covered with wires, damaged electronics, tools, and pieces of machinery taken from different sources. Some of the equipment looks old, while other parts appear much newer. On the far wall, Peter finds a large map of the city's underground infrastructure. Several subway lines, maintenance tunnels, and power systems have been marked. Certain locations are circled, suggesting that whoever created the map has been studying the city for a long time. Peter walks closer to examine it. Then his spider sense activates. The warning hits without explanation. Peter immediately moves to the side. A large metal hand swings through the space where his head had been. The impact damages the wall behind him. Peter rolls across the floor and fires a web towards the ceiling. He pulls himself upward and lands on a pipe near the top of the floor. From there, he looks down and finally sees the person responsible for the disappearances. The figure is tall and heavily damaged. Pieces of faded yellow fabric hang from a metal frame. Parts of the endoskeleton are visible through the broken suit, and several newer components have been attached to the body. Peter studies the figure for a moment, trying to understand what he's looking at. The creature doesn't attack immediately. Instead, Afton looks up at Peter and studies him. Afton has spent years surviving through planning and observation. He doesn't rush into a fight without learning something first. He watches the way Spider-Man moves and waits for an opening. Then he reaches towards a steel pipe attached to the wall. Using the strength of his upgraded frame, Afton tears the pipe free and throws it towards Peter. Peter moves out of the way just before it reaches him. The pipe crashes into the opposite side of the room. The attack confirms something important. Afton is much stronger than Peter expected. Peter drops from the ceiling and moves towards him. He knows the damaged suit has exposed joints and mechanical components, so he focuses his attacks on those areas. Peter rage baits while he's jumping around. You might be strong, but you're not as fast as me. He lands several quick strikes, aiming for the shoulders, knees, and sections where the older parts connect to the newer technology. The attacks affect Afton, but they don't stop him. Peter realizes the suit is built from a combination of metal and organic material. Every strike feels different from fighting an ordinary person or a fully mechanical machine. Peter pulls back and prepares to use his webbing, but before he can move, another wave of pain runs through his body. The physical changes he's been experiencing are getting worse. His movement slows for a moment, and that brief opening is enough for Afton to react. Afton grabs Peter by the shoulder and throws him across the room. Peter hits the floor, quickly gets back up, and tries to understand what just happened. Afton notices the change. Spider-Man is still fast, he's still powerful, but his movements aren't completely consistent. At certain moments, Peter slows down or reacts as if something inside his body is interfering with his abilities. Afton doesn't know the cause, but he recognizes a weakness when he sees one. Peter prepares to attack again, but Afton changes his approach. He understands that he can't keep fighting Spider-Man directly. Peter is faster, more agile, and capable of adapting during a fight. Afton needs to create a situation where Spider-Man has to choose between stopping him and saving someone else. Afton turns towards one of the large support columns connected to the transit tunnel above. He strikes it. The structure begins to crack. Peter looks up as pieces of concrete fall from the ceiling. Then he hears workers moving through the tunnel above them. Afton has already studied the subway system. He knows people are working nearby, and he knows Peter won't ignore them. Afton strikes the damaged support again. More of the ceiling begins to collapse. Peter looks back towards Afton, but he's already moving towards an exit. For a moment, Peter has a choice. He can follow the person responsible for the disappearances, or he can stop the tunnel from collapsing and protect the workers above. Peter chooses the workers. He fires several web lines towards the damaged section and pulls a falling structure into place. The weight forces him to use more strength than his changing body can comfortably handle, but he keeps the ceiling stable long enough for the workers to escape. Once everyone is clear, Peter reinforces the damaged area and lowers himself back into the control room. Afton is gone, but the map on the wall, the one showing every subway line, every maintenance tunnel, every power system in Lower Manhattan, Peter studies it for a long time. Wherever Afton went, he'll be back, and he'll know exactly where to look. Every day Marcus keeps bringing him supplies is the day Afton becomes harder to stop. After escaping the underground control room, Peter returns to his apartment with the evidence he managed to collect. The encounter gave him more questions than answers, but it also confirmed that the disappearances are connected to a larger operation. Peter places the damaged pieces of machinery on his desk and begins examining them. Some of the parts appear to come from older equipment, while others are much newer. The technology wasn't designed to work together, yet someone has found a way to connect it. Peter studies the wiring, the power systems, and the damaged mechanical components. He compares the materials with the information available through public records and technical databases. The more he investigates, the clearer the situation becomes. The creature underneath the city is rebuilding itself. It's collecting whatever it can find and adapting those parts to its existing body. Some of the equipment may have come from damaged government technology, while other pieces appear to have been taken from older industrial systems. Peter realizes the person responsible has a strong understanding of engineering. The modifications are rough, but they're effective. The creature has found ways to increase its strength, improve its movement, and keep damaged systems functioning. It may not have access to a proper laboratory, but it has enough knowledge to turn stolen equipment into something useful. Peter also notices that many of the parts appear to have been installed recently. That means the creature is still developing. It's becoming more capable over time. Peter begins organizing everything he knows. The missing people, the damaged subway areas, the stolen technology, the underground maps, the workers connected to the DODC. He starts looking for a connection between the equipment and the people who disappeared. At the same time, Peter continues monitoring the changes happening inside his body. The condition hasn't stopped since the first symptoms appeared. Some days his abilities feel normal. Other days he's way more aggressive, way more reactive, and a lot more dangerous. Peter knows he needs answers, but he doesn't have anyone he can turn to. The people who once helped him understand his abilities no longer remember who he is. He can't explain the situation to them without risking the life they've built since the events of No Way Home. So Peter handles the problem alone. He continues patrolling while studying his his condition in private. Meanwhile, Afton studies the information he gathered during the fight. The encounter showed him that Spider-Man is far more powerful than an ordinary person. Peter is faster, stronger, and more difficult to predict than anyone Afton has controlled before. But Afton also notices moments where Spider-Man's movements changed. Peter reacted to sudden pain during the fight. His speed became inconsistent, and his body briefly failed to respond the way Afton expected. Afton doesn't know what caused those changes, but he understands something is affecting Spider-Man. Instead of trying to defeat Peter through strength, Afton begins planning around the weakness he observed. He knows that direct attacks will only force Spider-Man to fight harder. A better strategy is to keep him under pressure and create problems in different parts of the city. If Peter is already struggling physically, constant emergencies could make the condition worse. Afton begins using the people working for him. Marcus receives instructions to place small pieces of equipment in locations connected to Spider-Man's recent patrols. A damaged section of yellow fabric appears near an underground entrance. A broken mechanical component is left near a building where Spider-Man has recently stopped several crimes. The clues are intentional. Afton wants Peter to find him. Peter notices a pattern almost immediately. The evidence is being placed where he's likely to see it. At first, Peter believes Afton is trying to lead him back underground, but after finding several clues in different parts of the city, he realizes something more concerning. Afton has been tracking his movements. Peter begins reviewing his recent patrol routes. He compares the locations of the clues with places where he has been seen helping people. The results show that Afton has access to information Peter didn't expect him to have. Someone is watching the city for him. Peter starts changing his routine. He takes different routes between neighborhoods, avoids returning to the same rooftops, and checks areas at different times. Then the clues start appearing in the new locations too. That tells Peter Afton's network is larger than he originally believed. Afton also begins creating small incidents across the city. A damaged drone loses control near a busy street. A power system fails near a public building. Equipment disappears from an underground storage area. None of the incidents cause major destruction on their own, but each one demands Spider-Man's attention. Peter responds because people could be in danger. As the incidents continue, Peter begins noticing a pattern. The problems are happening close to areas where he normally patrols. Afton isn't randomly creating chaos. He's testing how quickly Spider-Man responds and learning which situations force him to change direction. Every response gives Afton more information. He learns how Peter prioritizes emergencies. He studies how long it takes Spider-Man to travel between different locations. He watches which threats Peter investigates personally and which ones he leaves for the authorities. Then Peter gets a lead. Cross-referencing the drone components with DOD's missing equipment logs, Peter locates what appears to be Afton's next staging area, an unmarked storage building near a transit hub in the outer boroughs. It matches every pattern: isolated access, underground connections, recent activity flagged in maintenance logs but never followed up. Peter moves in carefully, approaching from above. The building is empty. It's not abandoned, it's deliberately cleared. On the floor, position where Peter would have had to walk to reach the only interior door, sits a single spring lock component attached to a pressure-sensitive trigger. If Peter had entered at ground level the way Afton expected him to, the mechanism would have fired. Afton wasn't hiding there. He was waiting to see if Peter would follow the trail. Peter knows this for what it is. Afton has been inside his investigation. He fed Peter the lead, prepared the location, and watched to see how Spider-Man approaches a building he thinks is empty. He now knows Peter goes high when he's being cautious. The investigation has been running in both directions the whole time. Peter eventually understands what Afton is doing. The creature isn't trying to hide anymore. It's studying him. That realization changes everything. Peter now knows Afton is trying to keep him busy, but ignoring the incidents could put people at risk. Every time Peter responds, he gives Afton another chance to observe him. Meanwhile, Marcus is starting to break. After weeks of stealing equipment, dropping packages in subway tunnels, and watching people he works with get quietly pulled into the same trap, Marcus reaches a point he can't walk past. He finds a number for a DODC anonymous tip line. He stares at it for a long time. He types out half a message on a burner phone that he bought with cash, but he never sends it. That night he comes home to find the burner phone sitting on the kitchen counter, intentionally placed there as a warning. He doesn't try again, but Afton has seen it, and now Marcus understands that there is no version of this where he quietly walks away. While Peter investigates the next fake staging area, Afton begins preparing a real location for their next encounter. Through his network, he learns about an abandoned containment facility outside the busiest parts of the city. The building was designed to hold dangerous equipment, and has reinforced walls, large storage areas, and several sections that can be sealed off. The facility gives Afton space to prepare. Marcus and another worker are sent to move equipment into the building. They bring power systems and damaged machinery. Afton studies the layout and identifies the best locations for traps. He doesn't plan to defeat Spider-Man by overpowering him. He plans to create a situation where Peter has to divide his attention between stopping Afton and saving other people. Peter traces the stolen drones and the encrypted signals back to the abandoned facility. He arrives late at night when heavy rain falls outside. The large steel doors are slightly open. Peter knows the entrance was left that way on purpose, but he enters anyway. He climbs onto the ceiling and moves quietly through the building. The main room is large and mostly empty. Then the building speakers turn on. Afton's creepy voice fills the room. "You keep moving, Spider-Man. That's the first thing I noticed about you. You don't stop. I've watched you for weeks. You change your routes. You adjust your timing. You notice the false staging area. I expected that." What Afton doesn't realize is that Peter's mutation isn't making him weaker. In fact, it's just the opposite. His arachnid genetics are getting stronger, and at this point in time, Peter has learned to control it. Peter jumps at Afton, bypassing all of the traps that Afton has set. Afton tries to make him choose again, between saving some workers and stopping him, but Peter is way too fast. His eyes go completely black as he punches Afton. Then they shift back to normal when he saves the workers. Springtrap is no match for Peter Parker. Before the fight even gets going, it's already over. Peter grabs Afton with his new organic magnetic webbing and chucks him across the room. Springtrap's suit starts to break. Peter looks at Afton and says, "You know, you're pretty scary. It's a shame you're so slow." After learning how to control his mutation and work with it, Peter is locked in. He starts hitting Afton over and over, swinging him from side to side. Afton can't keep up. Over time, the electrical systems in Afton's body begin to fail. Within seconds, the Springtrap suit gets destroyed. Afton remains trapped inside the damaged suit. The lights in his eyes begin to flicker as the remaining systems lose power. His voice box continues to work, producing a broken, deliberate sound. "You bought yourself some time, Spider-Man." Peter is annoyed. He doesn't listen. He secures the damaged suit to a steel support system using several layers of webbing. Afton is unable to move. Peter makes the anonymous call to the authorities, exposing the corrupted smuggling network and the location of the facility. Afton is transported to a classified containment site, locked in a windowless room lined with EMP generators, stripped of his stolen technology, reduced back to a rotting man in a broken suit. As he sits in the dark, Afton calculates his next move. He has eternity to figure out the lock on the door. For Peter Parker, the victory brings a shift in perspective. Springtrap changes how Peter approached the hidden threats already growing beneath the surface of New York. Afton taught Peter that predators hide beyond ordinary routes, manipulating the desperate, and that waiting for a crime to become visible may already be too late. After this, Peter goes back to focusing on the telepath. The plot of Spider-Man Brand New Day continues, slightly shifted by the timeline. He also reaches a new understanding of his physical evolution. The battle forced him to accept that his body is changing, and he can't ignore the symptoms by throwing himself into street-level brawls. Peter walks away from this fight with one lesson. He doesn't need to run from his body and his genetics, he just needs to accept them.